Kijk.
Is er geluid aan bij mij? Ja, hè? Die was
Mijn is aan.
Maar ik hoor mezelf nog niet.
Ik hoor mezelf wel. Is het hard genoeg? Hallo?
Hallo, hallo?
Ja, ben ik.
Hallo?
Ben ik, hallo.
Hoor je mij?
Is dit voldoende volume?
Dat weet ik niet.
Is dit voldoende volume?
Hoor je mij ook? Ben ik te horen? Ja?
Wat? Harder?
Ben ik goed? Ik hoor mezelf niet. Ik hoor mezelf niet, jongens.
Oh, ik zit hier op max.
Ja, jou hoor
ik ben
wel.
ook weg.
Maar ik hoor
Hallo,
mij niet.
test.
Ja, jawel.
Oké.
Ik hoor mijzelf niet.
Nee.
Ik hoor... Heb ik het stekkertje eruit getrokken?
Maar dat is alleen... Oh.
Ja. Hallo? Hoor je mij? Hoor je mij daar? Oké.
Ja.
Goed.
Ja, ik ook.
Dan gaan we, wat mij betreft kunnen we live.
En ik hoop dat ik het juiste volume heb nu.
Zijn we al live? Zijn we al live?
We zijn
al live. We're live.
We're live.
Gilbert, we're live.
It's as if we're in a bar.
It's just like real life. So welcome to this special Mobile World Congress edition of the SmartCom Summit, which concludes our 2021 winter series. And we're going to focus today in a couple of talks with some thought leaders live from Barcelona at the Mobile World. So around us we have 50,000 other people together, which is amazing in itself, right? We haven't had that for a couple of years. So it's great to be here with all these beautiful people at the MWC booth that's organizing this whole setup. And I'm here together with Gilbert.
Yes.
Gilbert is going to help me for the next 2 hours because he actually knows about this stuff. Because Gilbert was one of the first attendants of the very first MWC back in 2006.
Yeah.
Gilbert, can you tell a little bit about that and a little bit about yourself and about your history in this particular space?
Okay, I will. And yeah, yesterday was a bit shocking because I told you I was a bit disappointed that last year was the first time ever that I missed this event. Yeah. So you asked me, so when was the first time then? And yeah. I checked, and it was 2006. And it was the first time that the event was held in Barcelona. Okay. Before that it was in Cannes and in different other places, but really the first time over here. And a bit of a background, my responsibility has always been interconnect and roaming. So data traffic, enabling roaming between mobile networks around the world.
Yep.
And working for KPN's roaming team and iBasis being an international player to enable this data connectivity.
Of course.
And as of this year, and that's also the reason that I'm back again at the Mobile World Congress. I work for Kaleido Intelligence, a research company in the same space, roaming and interconnect, and of course looking at what are the latest trends here at Mobile World Congress, because it has changed.
Yeah, has it changed?
Yeah.
In 16 years, really?
Yes. Yes.
I was here actually last year when you skipped, so together we have them all covered.
Yeah.
And what struck me last year was that it was really about. I felt there was a change last year. Yeah. Only also because it was very small, right, compared to normal, because it used to be 100,000 or more people.
Yeah.
Last year was 20,000 because of the whole pandemic situation, more or less. Yeah. Now I think it's about 50
or
60.
50 around that, but it's at the peak it was 100,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what struck me last year, and we talked about this in earlier SmartCom Summit editions, last year I saw a sort of a shift to cloud, open standards, stuff that had been talked about in previous years sometimes, but in startup scenes or niche companies, if you will. And all of a sudden it was a major stage. I mean, Telco DR was one of the things that happened.
Daniel Royston was making a lot of noise.
Was a lot of noise.
He took over the Ericsson stand, great opportunity, and this year it's virtual again.
Yeah, so now it's virtual again. But I think that we're seeing that change continue, right?
Yeah.
So what strikes you, if you look at these last couple of days, some of the highlights that you think are...
Yeah, there's a total shift. I mean, just one small flashback when you look at 2006. The focus was on phones were being used to make voice calls. Nokia was the biggest brand in consumer phones.
BlackBerry?
RIM BlackBerry was there because you could check your email on your phone. That was the old days.
Yeah.
It was about devices and about network vendors.
Is Nokia still here?
They're still here as a network vendor and working indeed on radio access networks and all the solutions that are required there. Yep. But the key thing that you see here, and apart from metaverse, because there's a lot of buzz on metaverse,
everything.
And it's not that I'm not a believer. It will be there. It will take some time, and NFT will make money for people, and gaming will be happy with it. But for the real normal industry, it will take some time before you can start monetizing on that. So the real things that I observe here is, yes, cloud. Last year, a lot of noise was made, but I think right now it's already mainstream. And particularly with edge cloud, knowing that 5G is coming along, and that's a whole ecosystem that requires local breakouts. So you need to have the edge breakouts, you need to have solutions locally. So that's why the cloud and the edge is for me still a key trend, which is there to stay. And then automatically you move to a next key point, which is open.
Yeah.
Openness, open. Open RAN is a buzz that's being used. Rakuten, Dish Networks in the US. Daniel Royce is talking about it with Telco DR, that all the opcos should be, all the mobile networks should be moving to an open RAN system.
Yeah.
It will happen probably, but it will take many years because the majority of data traffic is still on the 4G cores. Yeah. And only gradually it'll move with 5G there. But the fact open standards means you're no longer depending on one network vendor, on Ericsson and Nokia and the other ones.
It can be interconnected.
You interconnect with others, and it means, and that's kind of moving to the third trend. It's much more openness to collaboration with other companies who have very smart solutions in a niche. And also later this afternoon we'll have discussions with, among us, Enreach with collaboration tools and Maven here, and you see they're really good in their own space, and they build on top of mobile networks, of course. So that open character enables these sort of players to be on top of the mobile networks. So cloud with the edge play, the openness of all these networks, and then a third one, which I do want to mention, is sorry if I rattle on in this one.
No, that's fine.
But
that's fine.
It's sustainability. When you walk around here, you see green matters. Yeah. The environment matters. There was a report earlier this week that it's not going well with planet Earth in that sense. So we need to be meeting our sustainability goals. And I think the mobile industry can contribute to that. And you see that around you. Some stands are really about green and about energy saving and about building sustainable solutions. Right. So those are the three things.
Okay. And did you mention IoT as well?
Not yet.
Okay.
So it's good that you're giving me that pinpoint here. IoT is everywhere. IoT is around us. We don't even notice it anymore, but it's with your phone. Yeah. It's with, well, predictions are that in now and 5 years you have at least 10 devices that are connected somehow to the internet. Okay. A lot of information will be available because of these devices and because of traveling. And think of a pragmatic sample right now with Corona. Yeah. When you're nearby a person who has it, the information is centralized, all within privacy rules, of course, and you can use it. So IoT, yeah, it's everywhere, and it's getting more and more important to not just do it within your country borders, but this is where my interest in the international interconnect and roaming environment comes along again. You need to make sure that it's globally enabled, and roaming has a lot of arrangements for that. Yeah. But fact is, with IoT, a device will stay permanently in a country. So what you need to do is arrange the permanent roaming availability for that device. It's not even roaming anymore at that point. You really need to make sure that it continues to work and that you continue to have access to it. Right. And that's an interesting challenge. And we'll later on also have a session on IoT, and we'll be addressing the challenge of staying connected for your IoT device, whichever network you're on. Always stay connected to it. Okay. And there's good solutions already for it. Okay. Yeah.
So what I hear in all of the trends that you mentioned, I see there's open standards, there's more ecosystem, there's collaboration between, let's say, the old telco players, infrastructure, and solution providers, applications. So there's a very distinct boundary there. and it's all about transformation, digital transformation, if you want, digital acceleration. I like to call it. It's going faster and faster, and that's creating some interesting challenges, of course, when you combine, let's say, the nimble software companies with the not so nimble carriers. And I think these are the things that we're going to be talking about for the next almost 2 hours with various guests from Enreach, from Mavenir, KPN, Symphony, of course.
Symphony iBasis also.
iBasis and some others. So it'll be very interesting. Thank you, Gilbert, for this introduction, the highlights. If people are short on time, you now know everything you need to know, but I hope you'll stick around for the next sessions with our guests. And I'd like to invite Bertrand and Javier to the stage here to start our next session in 1 or 2 minutes.
Okay.
Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Please make yourself
stay in the middle.
Make yourself comfortable. You take one of these and turn it on. There we go.
I got the pro equipment. You were last.
Yep. And I'm instructed you need to put it as close to your mouth.
Got it.
Oh, yep.
I prefer to stand personally.
Yeah.
So I look taller. as a Dutchman.
Just that.
As a Dutchman, right?
How long it takes.
So with us here now, we have two guys from that I've known for quite a while, some longer than others, from Enreach, somehow, Enreach and half Enreach. I'll let you guys introduce yourselves, what you're doing, and why you're here, I would say. Why are you at Mobile World? And did you recognize anything of what we discussed in the previous section about the changes? I'm curious. Let's start with you, Bertrand.
Okay, hi everyone. Hi. Thank you, Rob.
Good to see you.
So Bertrand Poncelot, I'm the CEO of Enreach for Service Providers, which is one of the business units into the Enreach group. Enreach objective is to become the UCaaS leader and the mobile-first UCaaS leader in Europe, with a presence in more than 20 countries, and really to lead by innovation. And we are here because we are a pioneer in mobile, both VoiceWorks, both Centile, who are pioneer in mobile, and we believe really as a mobile as a driver for innovation. Innovation in terms of value-added services and creating value by combining the connectivity and the end-user value-added services.
Okay, but now I'm immediately triggered because you say you're a leader in mobile. But you're not a traditional carrier. You're not a traditional mobile operator. So explain how this works. We're at Mobile World. We talked about Nokia, and I mean it's a carrier game, right? It has always been a carrier game. So how does that work with the way you come into the market?
Yeah,
what's the change that you see? Because I think you're seeing a big change here.
Yeah, it's a carrier game, but. Carriers haven't always been the most innovative and the most agile players, with all respect. I think our differentiator is to be an hybrid vendor/service provider. So it's by combining these two values that we can create innovation. We've been working at Enreach for Service Provider with carriers and MNOs for many years, and I would say joining forces with VoiceWorks, it helps building up a new, I would say, value add by combining access, network agreements, OSS, BSS, and the actual end-user value-added services. And that's where you can be very creative.
Yet, this does trigger for me one question, which is, when you look at mobile operators, indeed, they need to change. And what they always say is we need more diversification in the sources of revenue that we have, not just the core network, but also all the services on top. You need the network to put your services on. They need to continue making these investments. There is this little bit of an area where it's biting each other because they want to be in your space with the diversification, yet you might be much better in that space and ensure that the mobile operator is still happy in enabling you to provide these services. How are you going to do that?
Well, it's a kind of competition, if I can say, and I think there are plenty in telecoms. Yeah. And of course, I would say that's why we have MVNO agreements in 8 countries. It's to be able to partner with the mobile operators. However, several mobile operators try to be, I would say, marketplace and don't really engage with the solutions. So I think they need enablers like us, on the one hand to provide white label offerings that they could resell in their marketplace or through their retail, as well as offering towards end users. Some carriers haven't been so good with SMEs, I would say. So we believe there's a space towards SMEs creating differentiating services. So that's really our bet on investment in the market.
And when you say you call it co-opetition?
Yes.
I like to think of co-creation also. Is that happening? Do you see that happening? Because you said the carriers are not as agile maybe or innovative as you would like, as we would like, as we need, right? Because the user is more and more demanding and more applications are driving. So do you see that co-creation happening more?
Yes, it is happening. Maybe I'm a little biased because as Centile, so now Enrich for Service Provider, one of our key customers is Eliza, quite an innovative mobile players. Nordics are quite innovative, and we've been working hand in hand with them to really address the needs of the end user. So that's an example of cooperation, bringing mobile call center, mobile contact center in the market with recording services, API. I mean, we believe a lot in API for innovation. But also it's a chicken and eggs, APIs, is that, hey, we have nice APIs. Okay, who is doing the end-to-end service? So that's really this application composition and how we create these services together with the carrier when the carrier is ready to be innovative. Sometimes it's not so much, and is more focused on the investment to cope with the race towards new services, new capabilities in the infrastructure.
And with the co-optation that you're referring to, do you then also see customer ownership is always a little bit the thing of the operators? They say we have the SIM, so we own the customer, but you know much more about the customer because you have more data, more information. How do you see that in the co-optation model?
At Enrich, we are a very partner-friendly company. VoiceWorks has been working with partners. It's mainly in direct business historically. Same for Centile, working with service providers and carriers. So we let the ownership of the customer to our partner and the customer. We provide white labeling and so on. So it's really a co-creation, and we believe the customer ownership is very key for our partners. On the other end, you also need the right insight from the end user to improve your services, and sometimes you need to bridge that gap. So being in a direct business in some markets is quite valuable as well.
Okay. Let's switch to Javier, because you're more in the core of the network, right?
Yeah.
So how does this work for you?
So I'm Javier Martin, based in Madrid. I'm CEO of Suma Networks, and we are partially owned by Enrich Group. So we are like the odd ones in the group because we don't do unified communications. We just do, as you say, network infrastructure. So we have an HLR HSS now evolving into 5G pieces, and you were saying before that evolution, and that's the key point of the market now. Yeah, cloud is fantastic, 5G is great, the promise is beautiful, but we have done such a good marketing with 5G, but now realizing the promise is really complicated. Okay, so when you put everything together, keep in mind that you have a 3G, 4G network that you're going to have to give for many years. Okay, there's still 3 billion connections in 2G as of today in the world. So maybe you switch off 3G, but then you have to go into 4G, give VoLTE as a service, VoIP Wi-Fi as a service. So we are piling up technologies. Now put a network that is 5G, that is cloud native. So this means that first another network on top of the network, put them together to interwork, which is not easy, and then the skill set of your teams is completely different because they have to be now cloud engineers.
Right.
Okay, so the transition into 5G is going to be very learning, very complex. No? And as of today, you see 5G in your phone, and then you think you have 5G, but it's not 5G. It's 5G non-standalone, which is 4.5G.
Yeah,
so
it's on a 4G
there's
core.
still, as you said before, there's a long way to go, and it's not so easy. And then we, as nimble vendors, as you were saying, we have the chance to create this multi-vendor environment where carriers can feel more comfortable in the competition. Says, I'm not tied to the big guys anymore. I just can have my own environment, and I can switch providers if they don't serve what I need. And that's where the collaboration comes in, because then we can create things together. It's something from Suma Networks we're seeing in our customers.
And then from a network perspective, so 8 MV nodes is what you refer to, and then there's the move to 5G. Do you see one of the other trends that we didn't mention yet is private networks?
Absolutely.
And particularly in the enterprise market, that will become important. Next to the 8 MV nodes that you were referring to, do you see a big future for you combining that integration with private networks?
Absolutely. In fact, we had a lot of conversations in the event about private networks, because what is happening is that private networks are shifting the weight from carriers to other vendors.
Yeah.
So people are thinking, okay, there's some free space there where we can do things. We don't necessarily need to roam into operators. So it's like, if I have the right small providers put together and they can manage it for me, and that's the key now, is that everything is going to manage. So the complexity is going to be so high that we need networks that deploy themselves automatically, manage themselves. So the carrier is not so relevant anymore. So this is shifting to partners of good technology, nimble providers that can give you the solution. So that's the next chance. But absolutely, there's the next growth of the industry is IoT and it's private networks.
Yeah, we see quite a lot of talks, at least, on private networks. It's not so new. Huh? Yeah. We've heard it many times. There have been many concepts, not so many deployments, but I think it's going to be also about verticals, like logistics, manufacturing. There's need for private networks. Also, who's going to manage these networks? That large enterprise, the carrier. Will there be a roaming on the carrier network for continuity of service? At least when it comes to voice and UC, you need that. So I think that there's still a lot of unknowns on this topic, but a lot of demand indeed.
Well, I'm interested really in let's say how the innovation goes through the whole stack, right? Because we started with saying there's an infrastructure layer, slow moving, and then there's application and software that's moving quickly. I mean, we've seen a lot of changes these past 2 years because of the pandemic, right? All of a sudden, everybody's working from home half the time. Everybody's using Teams as normal tool every day. So I'm really interested in seeing how throughout the stack, and I think that's where the value is that you guys can also bring, having all those components. I always have this feeling that at this border of the infrastructure and the application, that's where the magic happens, right? That's where you can do the really fancy, nice things that translate eventually into a customer journey.
Absolutely.
So for example, I'm thinking of failovers from, let's say, data network connectivity to traditional or classical cell mobile connections as part of the customer engagement. Can you say a little bit about that? Because you're nodding, so you know what I'm talking about. Maybe better than I do.
Well, I think that's exactly the positioning of Enrich, to be in this value-added creation, which can be at different level in the stack, except transport.
Right.
We are not an infrastructure player yet. However, HLR, HSS, which is, let's say, also the subscriber database management, is key for the value-added services creation. So, indeed, you have to combine these elements. What we've observed over the last 2 years is really an increasing growth of the business usage of mobile. Despite the pandemic, you could have seen people are at home, they use VoIP, Teams and so on, but we saw a huge increase in the mobile usage for business, and we think it's going to keep on increasing. All the more as end users, they don't have now to choose between user experience and fixed versus mobile. Mobile used to be, I would say, a bolt-on to the business communication. Now it's becoming core, and that's really where we are working hard to bring the right user experience.
And going along with what you were saying is that the lines and the frontiers have been blurred. Sure. So radio, core, and services and applications were like three very differentiated layers. They are not anymore. And the expectation from customers is that you serve me everything. I give for granted that there's radio, I give for granted that everything works. Now give me business models that I can use. So that's where the lines blur, and they expect you to be like a full stack provider in that sense. No? So we are, as Suma Networks, we are having to jump into the services area. So we have to go above and create full services that customers can use, and that's where the relationship with Enrich for service providers comes, because now it's not only that you give me the private network or you give me the full core, is that I want a PBX on top of that working on cloud native that I can downsize or big size if I need it. So it's like the expectation of customers is that you give me the whole thing, so I can make money out of this, and that's the next challenge as well.
Yeah.
It's a move to let's say the value layer indeed, but
Absolutely.
you do need to have the fact that everything, the cloud is there, the open standards are there, and it makes it easier for service providers to add that value.
Which is a lot to give for granted, but they're right, because we did the marketing right, and we have to realize the promise.
But if I may add, I think there's a more and more best of breed approach. On the one hand, the end user is looking for a one-stop shop, the end user, but then the carrier may use the best of breed approach, and that's very relevant for Suma networks, but also for value-added services in the SIP application server and so on, where you can plug to third parties and interoperabilities are, I would say, more and more I would say proper and working well. So that's really a good drive for innovation.
Talking about that innovation and drive, I can imagine this is also a platform where you allow partners of yours to also bolt on their stuff, right? It goes both ways. You mentioned APIs. I have a bit of history in APIs. I'm a big fan. It's always been difficult in this space to talk about. There's a difference between an API and an API product, I like to say. So how do you see that work out on the, let's say, the application side of things?
Yeah, I would say our approach in general is to have towards the B2B segment two approaches. I would say off-the-shelf solution, very often developed in-house, to be turnkey and so on, and APIs to plug to third party. Could be on the video collaboration. We have our own WebRTC video collaboration, but we can integrate Zoom, Teams, and so on, for the ones who already have it or want best of breed, or at least capabilities that we may not have in our off-the-shelf solution.
Yeah, because the customer is choosing that, and he's putting a lot of demands, of course, on the technology providers, everywhere.
Yes,
including you.
And there's no one-size-fits-all in terms of where you come from. It's a journey. So you may have, let's say, you've moved to Teams already. Then you want to add FMC. You want to have a CRM integration, and that's what our platform can bring.
You don't think just Teams or just Zoom is enough for everybody?
Well, it's very hard to read in crystal balls, and maybe some people doing that 2 years ago before the pandemic would just look ridiculous today, and same thing with Nokia some years ago, so I will be very careful. But I believe that the innovation is driven by standards, API, and best-of-breed approach. Everyone is trying to be single source, but I don't think that's the way forward. And even if there's a lot of consolidation, there's still a lot of diversity. And at the end user, hopefully, will choose.
The thing is that, sorry to just for a minute. The thing is that we come from an industry that is run by technologists and is run by network people. And network people, we are like close people. We want our own stuff, But now it's the IT guys coming. Even when you hire a 24, 25 years old guy, they're open by default, and they think about APIs and IT principles. So they're bringing the IT principles in. So their expectation is everything is open and everything is collaboration. And so we are in this clash, and we are in this evolution now.
But part of the clash is also a little bit that, let's say, mobile networks or the telco industry in general, they're looking for interoperability, and they create standards, and they make sure it's always working, no matter where and no matter which device and which country. And when you look at IT side, it's like just Teams, Zoom, which collaboration tool will be used. There's no interoperability between those. You need to support both of them. Probably then the APIs come in, but that's still going to be going forward a bit of a tension, and perhaps good for the telco world that there's always this fallback mechanism to the good old phone call once in a while.
The boomerang effect of the technology will come back.
Yeah, but I believe voice is still important. A number of vendors are saying voice is key for the customer relationship, for customer engagement, and so on. I believe voice will remain. Will it be OTT? Will it be...
Customer doesn't matter. He just wants to have clear, good voice.
It doesn't matter. That's, I would say, our technologist pitch sometimes. And I think that hiding this complexity to turn this into a real use cases that are valuable for me in my day-to-day life. That's what it is all about.
Yeah, I think it's key. I mean, at the end of the day, it's about connecting, right? And we're talking about network connection. Connecting people is the end goal. Look at what we're doing here again, how great it is to be together. And I agree with you that voice is not going away. We just need better ways to make voice part of the communication mix.
Exactly.
And I think that's the big challenge as we go forward.
Well, voice is the most powerful human communication tool.
Yeah.
No, I have kids at 18, 20. I know it doesn't look like it because I look very young, no? But I have kids in that age, and they are rediscovering the phone call. So they're doing Instagram, they're doing WhatsApp, and suddenly it's like, wow, I can talk to someone in like a private space, and it's like just, and it's for. So the guys are like amazed. So again, the Fulguran effect will come back. So we'll go back to the old ways in different shapes.
Yeah. And we can see with voice messaging that's a very efficient one. You know,
absolutely.
Typing, there's still a lot of bottlenecks. Many situations you can't do it. So voice messaging, well, nothing revolutionary, but we see it happening very fast.
No, that's true. But with the phone bill that you mentioned, I look at my kid's phone bill, and then there's 0 voice calls, and it's all data.
Text.
Yeah.
But it's all bundled, right, in the price.
It's all bundled.
These days. So, guys, next year, prediction for next year. When we're here next year, what will be the big change?
Well, hopefully there are even more people than this year.
Of course.
To start with, but. Well, our expectation is that we will have an even faster growth of the use of mobile in business communications, and that mobile will really become the main driver. As I said, it used to be a bolt-on. It's now going to be the mainstream communication. It's already there in the Nordics for many years, and it's going. We can see that it's happening all over Europe. And I think that 5G and sometimes private networks will also enable this even faster growth.
It's a whole ecosystem in that sense.
Yeah. I see it as a year of acceleration because up to last year it was 5G, it was the marketing, it was like, it's gonna come, it's coming. Now it's really coming, and that's when everyone is, down to earth and installing and deploying, and it's when things are happening. So my expectation is this year is going to be like blazing fast. The feeling from the event is like now everything is progressing. I want it. It's not that let's talk about it. I want it now. So everything is accelerating a lot. My concern is that we are starting talking about 6G. And 6G is a very nice philosophical concept, and it's many years in the future, but maybe we are so fast in creating 6G that we forget about that we are still deploying 5G for the next 10 years. So it's like, let's see how it catches up.
When you look at it historically, it's a cycle of 10 years.
Yeah, exactly.
For each G to be added. And 5G is picking up faster than 4G, but it will take a long time. You said earlier also, everything is, main volume is data still on 4G cores, first 5G, and talking about 6G is fine, because then you have new innovative ideas.
Exactly.
Well, great, guys. I'd like to thank you for inspiring us for the future, and I look forward to talking again next year to see what came true of all of this. Thanks.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. That was good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Talk to you guys later. We're waiting for Symphony. Joachim, have you seen Joachim?
Not yet. No. So what do we do? Do we make a pause? Do we
we pause a little bit
with an introduction on IoT?
Yeah, Laila, can you check where Joachim is? We'll just do a little.
It's possible that they're still celebrating because they won a few prizes.
They won a big award. I know. And I know he lost his phone yesterday or the day before, so it may be hard to reach him.
He can't even make phone calls right now.
So
I'm happy that some of the, let's say, points that we addressed in the first 10 minutes, let's say, executive summary, that they were confirmed with the collaboration tools, with the evolution of the networks, with the open standards, cloud enablement. for this what Bertrand called the co-optation.
Yeah, I like that.
From networks with networks, let's say, with service providers like Enreach. So that was good to hear.
Yeah. What do you think of the point that Javier added, the part that's inside the network, and how that can work with, let's say, inside and outside of the network, how that gets together?
He was referring to the 5G and the private networks, and when you look at it from a perspective of enterprises in need for either security, keeping it within their premise, special solutions and all, that you need to have that integration. And I think that's what he was referring to as well. You need to have this integration. Only the transport layers which they don't touch, but for the rest, they want to integrate the different networks and the different network technologies. And I think that's his main goal, and more go deeper into that vertical there to have control on your network functions. Yeah.
It's interesting. I'm thinking if we...
Oh.
Dick. Questions from the floor.
There you go. For falls.
Okay, having listened carefully to all of the speakers and yourself, I'm just wondering, the human capital part seems to be somewhat underestimated in your discussions. I hear a lot about technology, I hear about digital transformation, about global trends, about security, but I don't hear a lot about, let's say, the leadership issue and how to develop human capabilities, training, education, coaching, what have you. What would be your view on that in terms of making digital acceleration work at enterprises specifically?
Of course, we're working this afternoon towards a climax. So the final session will all be dedicated to sustainability and leadership and human capital in that sense. And I think when I started today's discussion on the fact that there was so much change in the market, 2006 up till now, at that point it was really about the technology and the new features and new devices. And the key thing you see today is actually how can we create value. It is all about value, it is all about the sustainability, and how can we enable that, and how can the telco community contribute to that goal. I mean, a lot of industries have the ambition, at least 2050, to be climate neutral. Some other industries are aiming at 2030. And I think telco, and particularly what you can see with IoT and the solutions that we have there, can contribute to it. There's a lot more knowledge about behavior. There's a lot more knowledge in that sense to understand what people want and how we can make life easier in that sense. Oh, see, I'm triggering a follow-up question, so.
Of course, you're right, but still I wonder, do we have the right leadership in place in our enterprise community? Because it seems like, associations like the BTG are doing their utmost to make people aware of the importance, the risks, and how to behave themselves in terms of being the right digital leader. I mean, you talk about sustainability. I'm fine with that. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But here I am talking about leaders recognizing the importance of digitization, cybersecurity, and really implementing it into their organization. Process-wise, technology-wise, platforms, but also strategy. Are we on the right track in the Netherlands, in the enterprise community?
Jij mag in het midden.
From the perspective of awareness, of awareness, I think in the past 2 weeks, we've seen with Ukraine and the situation there, that there is a clear awareness on cybersecurity and what needs to be done there. I don't have the insight whether in the Netherlands we're completely ready for that. For sure there's a wake-up call right now on that, not just for the Netherlands, but for the entire world. From a leadership perspective, on the one hand, it will be for all the good reasons, for the environment. On the other hand, saving energy is also saving money. So a lot of the leaders in companies will be focused on that as well, and it will eventually achieve the same goals. There's a huge diversity in all these companies, and in the end, probably good innovation and positive steps forward will will eventually become the dominant factors in the industry, is my belief. I'm in that sense an optimist. So I hope that answers the question.
Well,
okay.
Well, I think it's a great question, Dick, and we'll get to that at the final session, of course, with our guests then, because there is a big shift, and I totally agree with you. It's all about leadership, to drive the change and to lead, let's say, everybody in somewhat of the same direction. So we're going to be talking about it at the end of the show. Thanks for the question. You gave us some time to have a chat.
Sorry about that.
No, we survived, right? We were able to bridge it, so that's good, and we're happy that you're here.
Perfect.
And I told Robbie...
So this is not live, right? Or?
This is live.
Okay.
We're live.
This is live.
Yeah.
This is live.
So we're back with the next session with Joachim de Wild from Symphony. And we're going to talk about IoT. I don't know, I never know what IoT is, so that's question number one for you to answer. And then I know there's been a couple of interesting occurrences or things happening in your life, not only the last 15 minutes, but also the last couple of weeks. So why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, what you're doing, and what's been happening the last 2 weeks.
Great, thanks for having me. Thank you. It's good to be amongst friends here. That's great. Again, sorry for being a bit late. Mobile World Congress for us, it's all about meeting people. And it's been back to back for the past
I was joking
days,
to Rob that you were probably celebrating from the acquisition from last week, that was the reason for being a bit late.
I was about to go there.
Okay.
So my name is Joachim. I'm CEO for Symphony. Symphony started back in 2014, 2015, where we really saw an opportunity to build a platform where you can manage the IoT connections in a proper way, like bulk provisioning and a lot of tools that you need if you run an IoT business. And it was a great journey. We grew really rapidly.
Yeah.
So first we focused on the technology side, and the past years we were really successful in onboarding MVNOs, MNOs on our platform. So below the mobile connectivity platform, we have an entire MVNO stack. So we basically can deliver a full-blown MVNO specifically for IoT. And we've done that successfully. Back in December last year, we had a great example there, with Saudi Arabian first MVNO. So we basically enabled them completely. The name of the company is Machine Stalk. And that really tells the story of what we do. So we did take care of the integration with STC, who is their operator they use. And we did the whole installation on-prem, because traffic needs to stay in the kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So that's the typical kind of projects we've run. But what we noticed over the past, especially last 2-3 years, is that when we are scaling up this quickly, you can do that yourself organically, but it's quite a challenge. So we decided to look for strategic partnerships. So we started the process about a year ago. And we were already working with a company called iBasis. Great company, as you know.
Yeah, I happen to know them.
Have you heard of them?
I only worked there for more than 15 years. Yeah.
Okay.
So you know them. And they are really strong also. They have basically a business side on the IoT connectivity side, and we bought the eSIM solution from them, together with the profiles that our customers can then have connectivity on. And they came into the process, and I was so happy to see them there. And we were able to close an acquisition with them, so they took us over. So we are now part of the iBasis family since 2 weeks officially.
Well,
and
congratulations.
Yes, and I'm especially very glad that we can be part of that journey going forward, because we are not done yet. So we have so much growth to go through, and with iBasis we now have a really cool company around us with a lot of specialists, a lot of smart people like you. So we look forward to the future to grow the Symphony platform together with the eSIM solution of iBasis towards a next step, like the next stage of our company.
I must say, I think it's very complimentary, and it's a very good deal that has been made. And your example of Saudi Arabia is also very interesting, because a lot of people in the IT space think, I need an international solution. I have a partner, they have roaming around the world, so I'm covered. It's all good. That's not true. And I think that's part of the success for Symphony, is by using the eSIM technology, you have a flexible way of changing profiles. So whichever country you are, if you need to provide for the local regulation, you can switch profile and use that one. And the MVNO in Saudi is likely moving in that direction.
Yep.
And when you look at iBases, they won a prize this week at the MEFIs for a permanent roaming solution. And that permanent roaming solution is important, because if you don't have it, after 2-3 months, depending on the country, there's a shutdown. So your device will no longer be connected. And perhaps you can tell a bit more on that permanent roaming solution and why it is so important.
Yeah, definitely. I think it goes back to the eSIM. Your comment earlier that the eSIM is important. So I think a lot of people see eSIM as a solution for the consumers, right? So, for example,
if you lose your phone, for example,
you and me.
like I did 9 months ago here.
I learned from the best. I lost it 2 days ago, and I was without a phone. So I bought one, got the eSIM profile on it. Awesome solution, right? Yeah. And that's how most people refer to the eSIM, as that thing in your iPhone that you can...
just convenient.
Convenient. But for the IoT segment, it's in specific really, really good, because you have... if you have a project in IoT, most of the time you do a deployment. Is it breaking up?
Yeah, it's breaking up a few times.
Okay.
So now it's
all right, let's try this one. So within IoT, when you do a deployment, for example, water meters, tracking devices, most of the time it's a project for 5 to 10 years.
Yep.
Even utilities, right? Water meters in households, they're like for a long time there. So what you don't want to have is a SIM card stuck in there that you then need to replace if you don't like your MNO provider anymore, or there is a problem on the network side. So the eSIM solution comes in where you have the flexibility to not be stuck with one profile or one operator, one IMSI, but you can then move around. And our customers, the end customers of our customers, those guys are really looking for those type of solutions. Like, how can we be certain about connectivity now and in 10 years?
Perhaps good to, I mean, I know you have a few really nice use cases. It might be good to mention one or two, because for the audience it's good to have a bit understanding of what are the cases we're talking about. You were talking about the meters already.
Yeah,
that's narrowband.
Because I started by saying I never know what IoT is, because IoT means so many things to different people, right?
Correct.
And there's a broadcasting example that you also have. I always like that one. Perhaps you can tell more on that one.
Yeah, so IoT, and to make it really simple, I think that's the easiest way to look at it, is that you connect things. That's what you do within IoT, right? Yeah. So simple as that.
But that's everything.
Yes, yes. And I can tell you where we focus on. Yeah. So we focus on the cellular type of connection for things. And that means that we use the 2G, 3G, 4G. Nowadays you have these low power one type of connections like MBIoT. But what we do is we use public available infrastructure, like the cell towers, and connect things to that via a SIM card. Yeah. And then the eSIM is just a type of SIM card that you do that for. So connecting things, that's what we do.
Yeah. So examples? Typical examples?
It goes everywhere. I'm always, when I'm in a meeting with a customer and we talk about IoT, I for example give the one example is there's this plant over there that can be connected, so when you need to give it water, the temperature in the room, is it right for the plant, or when do I need to put fertilization on it, or so everything that you have around you can be connected, so you'll be better at servicing it, making sure it's handled properly. I think in a venue where we are today, a good example is when you wash your hands and you want to take the towels, from that thing. Yeah. Usually, you need to go around the building like every few days, and it's a long walk. You know that
to check
to check if there are still towels in that thing. Yeah. So why would you not measure that with a sensor? Yeah. So okay, in that hall I need to go there because in like an hour it's out. And that actually happened in, for example, the Amsterdam Arena. They do that there. That's one cool example.
But, so why would you do that with a SIM or cell network instead of Wi-Fi or Bluetooth or Zigbee or whatever?
It's a good question. I think it's not a must to do it with one or the other. It really depends on the use case. Yeah. So I think one of the most important things to know is the need for bandwidth. So how much bandwidth do you need? Then another thing is security. So it make sense to do a private network. and have your own, cell towers in the stadium or in the. But if you have a solution where you have trucks driving around the country, good luck with making that private. You need to have the cell towers doing the work for you.
Right.
So what we see with customers is that they end up having a mixture, or they focus really on one or the other.
And I guess perhaps to add to that, what you often see is when a device is manufactured, you know it's for global deployment, but you have no idea where it will end up. So if it would be depending on the LoRa network, you have no idea whether in the country where it's shipped to, whether there's a LoRa network available for that, and there's no roaming arranged on that either. And with eSIM or with a SIM in general, you know there's mobile networks. If it's for a short while, it can be done with roaming. If it has a permanent sort of solution requirement, then eSIM is better, as already explained. And then global deployment, you need to have a SIM card in it. Yeah.
Well, actually, I think there's even one more type of connection that we can use, especially in rural areas like in Africa or on seas. Satellite.
Yeah.
That's an interesting one.
Yeah.
And we have historically had some projects on the table where we made a mixture, like a blended solution, where you can, for example, track these big sea containers,
Yeah.
Then when they are on sea, you can track them over satellite, and when they arrive, you start to use the cellular networks.
Yeah.
And when they come into the harbor, then you might use like LoRaWAN type of solution. So you can really, and for us, that gets out of bed, is to make that easy to manage within the platform.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think satellite is also something that we need to recognize, although really expensive still. Not so fast, so
It's more a
depending on the
backup
use case.
redundancy solution in that sense.
Yes, correct, correct.
In the previous session with Enreach, we talked about, let's say, it's all driven by users, right? Use cases, users. If the technology has to be user friendly, and in there we talked about how they are active. They provide solutions in different levels in the values in the whole stack, basically, both infrastructure and at the top. And I had the feeling that you're doing something similar now in the combination with iBasis, right? You're combining the network and can do some smart things there, and then combine it with the, let's say, the middleware that you have, and provide a complete solution. Is that a trend that we see that more and more? Is it important?
It's really hard to be able to have the entire stack from the core network and the relationships with the MNOs in specific. You need to have relationship with those guys,
Yeah.
and it's really hard to build them. So if you onboard a new operator, it can take you years to do that, right? So that's already a challenge. But then also have the ability to go up the top and have the business layer there with billing systems, with self-service portal that your customers can use and all. Not a lot of companies have the entire suite. And with this acquisition, we now have basically one company providing the entire step.
Yeah.
And that's the big value that we can offer. So I think to answer your question, it's really hard to get there. The entry barrier is enormous to have the entire thing working. Because traditionally also, the core network side, that's telecom stuff, right?
Yeah.
We, Symphony, I'm now also
Yeah.
iBasis, but historically Symphony, we come from a software point of view, with telco in mind, of course. So it's a really interesting and powerful mix there. Yeah, looking forward to leverage that.
Yeah. One question on eSIM. There's some talk, people saying it's too expensive.
I agree. No.
But there's also benefits. What's your view on that? Because I think we had some research at Kaleido, and there will be more than 1 billion active eSIMs by 2026. But also considering cost, what's the reasoning behind it? What are the values?
Yeah, no, I think if we reach those numbers, the price will be way down.
Yeah.
First of all, that's just a matter of time. If we scale in amount of eSIMs out there, we will see the price coming down. So that's good. But what do you consider expensive? Because we are talking about the upfront chip itself, right?
Yeah.
To buy the chip one-off is pretty high. It's like 5 times more than like a Java-based basic SIM card. However, if you have an IoT deployment for the next 10 years or so, and you are stuck with one SIM card that you at some point don't like anymore, the technology changes, that's a really expensive exercise. So if you need to go around the city and the street lights are having a SIM card in there, and you need to replace those, you can imagine the project cost there.
Yeah.
So yes, up front, the chip itself is a bit expensive. On the other hand, the risk involved of not going with eSIM is even more expensive and a bigger risk.
Fair point. And then permanent roaming was already mentioned before, and that is also one of the reasons to have eSIM. There was also research there that about 70% of MVNOs and MNOs said that is actually the most critical issue that we see. Do you agree on that? Do you see any other issues in that sense?
So what's the most critical?
Permanent roaming, that
roaming.
you bump into that suddenly it's no longer working, there's a shutdown.
Yeah, it is definitely something that business should consider more.
Yeah.
We've seen cases around the world, and not only in faraway countries that we never visit, but also in the US. You see some challenges there for some players.
We have some water if you want to. Add to that,
I've been talking all day.
Yeah, Brazil has it, so it's not allowed there. Australia has it, Turkey has it,
Exactly.
and China has it. So there's more companies or more countries that are being added there. Yeah.
So what's important for an enterprise company to select the right partner is making sure that your provider has the direct relationships.
Yeah.
And this is also a strong point for iBasis. Working directly with the tier 1 operators.
Yeah.
It's a must, otherwise you are a bit at risk.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm losing my voice here, live, on the live stream.
It's a very normal phenomenon. Usually I limited my presence here for 3 days, because after 3 days I couldn't talk anymore.
It's not just the talking, right?
The mouth caps do help, because it's creating a good environment for...
So I'm not sure how much I can contribute from here.
Okay. I have one more question for you, because you explain how important it is that you now are part of a larger company with more, let's say, reach towards the MNOs that you want to work with, and the technology, the infrastructure layer. But you started 6, 7, 8 years ago in the back of a garage, a couple of guys writing software, because that's how it goes, right? So why can't the carriers do their own innovation like this? We talked about this in a previous session as well. Innovation is crucial. There's all sorts of acquisitions. It's important. And there's a leadership issue that was raised earlier.
Might be an issue with your microphone.
And there's an issue with the microphone here as well.
Yeah.
So there's a technology issue.
Yep. Now we need a satellite for redundancy.
So there's a technology issue here as well. But the question, so why or what's necessary to have more of these sort of innovations come out of the industry, instead of startups doing it because they're crazy enough to want to try something, they're bored, whatever, they have some... what do we need to do to create more of this ecosystem or surroundings or environment to have these innovations from the entire industry?
I think the answer is twofold, at least from my perspective. I think first of all, it's a different type of company you need to develop these innovation things, right? You can only be good at one thing at the same time, I think, and running a network is already really hard. Make sure with all with all the security. I really can't do it anymore. Don't do it on purpose, right? So no, I think one part is the security things that they need to think of, and all those things that come with running a network. It's already complex, and then do a software kind of project or innovative stuff. It's really hard to combine that in one building, in one company. Secondly, I think if you look at the roadmaps of these guys, the MNOs, they are full with 5G and a lot of stuff. They are locked for the next year or so, and the opportunity for IoT is now.
Yeah.
For example, IoT. It can also be AI or whatever. So I think if they want to leverage the new opportunities, then they all have to collaborate with guys like us.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're going to give you a break now, Joachim.
Okay, let's see. Yes, I can still say thank you.
Yeah, thank you for being here. We're going to talk.
Much appreciated.
We're going to talk about the subject about the ecosystem and collaboration between, let's say, tech and carrier more in the next session.
Yeah. Perhaps even linking into a question we had in between from Dick, how is leadership contributing to sustainability? And it's innovators like you who contribute to that as well by coming up with these new ideas, with these new solutions. They still need to have the core network, but they have the new solutions in place to grow and to create the value for people to use it. And along the way, I mean, when you talk about crops that you can monitor whether it needs water, or you don't need to travel to those things anymore. So that's saving energy.
Absolutely. So thanks again, Joachim. And
thank you, guys. Thank you.
Look forward to the next steps in your journey.
Yes. I will hang around and see what you have for us here.
And save your voice a bit.
Have some more water. Thanks.
Dankjewel.
Okay, we're going to take a little break. Shall we?
If we have time available,
shall we do 5 minutes with AJ? Because
we are.
We do that. AJ.
Yeah, please come over here. We have a microphone for you.
The microphone. I think.
Please, you can come in the middle here.
I think mine is working again. Yeah, and we'll just.
Might be good for a little introduction with the iBasis background. Joachim already explained on the acquisition, but it will be very good also from your perspective to explain a bit more why it's such a good deal.
Okay, yeah, sure. So a little bit about myself.
Is it good on?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Better.
Okay. So I'm Ajay Joseph. I'm from iBasis. And a little bit about what iBasis does for a living, so to say, is we're one of the largest international carriers in the world today. One of the businesses that we started about 4 years ago was the IoT business. And in the IoT business, we have relationships with operators across the world, MNOs. With that, we have a eSIM profile, a EYCC. And so we can offer a single SKU, a single eSIM, one SIM card. And with that, you could be locally connected to as many networks as possible. So the use case is, let's say you're a car company. You make cars, you distribute the cars all across the world. And when the car comes to the Netherlands, for example, you want to download or put the KPN connectivity in there. If it's in the US, you want to put AT&T. If it's in UK, Vodafone. But all of that with one SIM card. So you do not need to go back, purchase another SIM card, test it out, all of that. Now where Symphony comes in, and that's the company that we just acquired last week, was Symphony has what's called a connectivity management platform. And the connectivity management platform manages the underneath connectivity of all of the SIM cards that we have and the connectivity over there. So if you're a customer, you want to be generating your own plans, just like an MNO. You want to buy 10 MB for $5 or €5 in this particular country for these destinations. You want to order your SIM cards, you want to bill it, you want to monitor it, you want to set alerts. That's where the CMP platform from Symphony comes in. So we believe the combination of the two is quite powerful with respect to a user experience that is all through that single portal. You have the ability of controlling your SIM cards, managing it, monitoring it, doing all of that.
Very good.
I think that was perfectly aligned with what Joachim said, so it must be true. It must be true. But I like it from your perspective, because we talked about how the combination of the two is more than just the sum, right? It's a bigger, there's more possibilities for integrations and innovations throughout the whole stack. And there's a lot of innovation necessary because these use cases keep exploding. So it's great to see the combination here. Thank you for joining us at the very last minute. We'll make sure that we'll put it together in a recording somehow. Makes sense. But I think it's great. So you won also an award, I hear, on Monday.
Yes.
Why was this?
Yeah, so we won a award at the MEFI. It was on Monday. So one of the things we did a lot of work last year on So what I just mentioned with respect to the eSIMs, iBasis has just been the first to work with the largest operator in the US, which is Verizon. Verizon has the best coverage that you have in the US. And using the Verizon coverage, we can now download the Verizon, what's called the profile. That's a Verizon connectivity on that iBasis eSIM. So we're the first to do it. It's taken us a lot of work. It also puts us in a very unique position. And the work that went in to do that has kind of contributed a lot in terms of the big innovation that resulted in us winning the world war.
So
Monday.
AJ, with Joachim, what we addressed was the issue of permanent roaming, and what we saw in the US was after a few months of roaming, there's a shutdown by the US operators, and to prevent that from happening, you need to have a local profile, pretend as if you are a local subscriber, and that's what you have as a solution. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Perfect. Well, thanks for joining us, AJ, and we're looking forward to seeing what you guys are going to do together the next year.
All right, great.
Thank you. We'll take a short 1-2 minute break to reorganize here. See if we have our next guests, Eddie and Jan Rijk.
Is he already here? Hey. Oh, there he is.
And is this your phone, Joachim, or is this?
No, it's mine.
Jan Rijk,
please.
Eddie. Eddie, please.
Please, in the center. What's the water?
Okay. Hopefully this one works. Hey guys.
Yes. Oh,
ready?
Someone steals it, I might have to jump over you to get it.
So Eddie, we have a mic here for you as well.
Test.
It's working. Let's see if everything's working again or still.
Test. This one works too.
I didn't know if you wanted to name
No. So, yeah, ready?
Yes,
okay.
ready.
Okay. We're back. So we're back at SmartCom Summit's MWC special, live from Barcelona. It's as live gets so far. Now we have two gentlemen that are nicely on time. Great. And I'd like to welcome Jan Rijk Vonk of KPN and Eddie de Curtis of Mavenir. The previous two sessions we talked a lot about, let's say, the combination of carriers and software or solution providers and how they get together and how the integration of the full stack really is more and more important for today's use cases. So I'd like to have a discussion with you guys from your point of view, from a carrier point of view, from a tech vendor point of view, about this subject. And I'd like to start with you, Jan Rijk.
Sure.
Bring it on. What's the biggest challenge for carriers in innovation?
That's ourselves. The biggest challenge are ourselves. We are our own enemy.
Yeah.
We have been spoiled rotten over the last decades. Money flowing in like crazy. And all of a sudden we had to face a market that was gradually declining. And how do you overcome such a situation? Well, you've never learned how to do that. And that's what we're in. And that's the reason why you see a lot of the word innovation around here.
Yeah.
Whereas you actually have to rethink if it is kind of innovation. I think it's a gradual increase rather than a big change. And we need to change big on the outside but also on the inside. And that's what I'm trying to depict here. It's not just about new things that we can adopt, but it's also about adopting a new organization that is going to change and be way more open. And I'm not talking about open telco immediately, but that's that's basically the direction we have to go to. That's what we're seeing with the platforms that are growing like crazy. They're open.
Right.
And we try to, typical Dutch, we try to build dikes around it.
Yeah.
Let go of the dikes.
Okay.
There might be some water, but it might also be okay.
Sounds good. Eddie, what do you think from your point of view?
Wow,
Tell us a little bit about what Mavenir does.
Thank you for having me. And
Yeah.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Usually when I say it, I get in trouble because I say it in front of the carrier. The carriers are very, very good at doing certain things, and innovating sometimes is not in their forte. Where companies such as Mavenir, we can come in and our job is to make their lives easier. Our job is to innovate with them and really try to enable them to have the tool sets to broaden their offerings to their consumers and their businesses that they're currently serving. I think it's very, very important for the innovators in the space to work closely with the carriers, because they have built these billion-dollar networks. They have spent billions of dollars acquiring these customers. They have spent billions of dollars a year maintaining these networks. It's their customers, right? So we should be helping them, making sure that the carrier sits at the center of the universe for these businesses and these consumers. But carriers are, I remember back in the day in the 90s in the United States, these wireless carriers were cowboys. And the phone companies were these big Arbachs, and they were real slow moving, and the wireless carriers just, did whatever they wanted, and they were crazy. Well, the wireless carriers are now the biggest companies in the world, right? Now they're the slow dinosaur. So it's up to us as innovators and to work with them and actually make their lives easier and enable them to bring the best of breeds to their consumers, and if it's a business or an individual.
But what's wrong with just letting them be and just going with the big tech companies, over the top solutions? Because apparently there's a value there for the carriers. I mean, they're slow moving, they have trouble adopting, but there is value there, it seems.
If you look at every study or market research that's been done, consumers trust their wireless carriers more than any of them. Some people don't even know who WhatsApp is, right? Or Facebook or whatever. But they'll trust AT&T, or they'll trust KPN. They know by doing business with this company, my business, it's trusted. There's a trust layer there that I can never see Facebook ever achieving, or Twitter, or Twilio, or the other guys out there. iBasis, or people don't know them, or people do know them, but that level of trust is not there. I pick up my phone, it works. I use my phone, it works. My bills are, so there's just this layer of trust that I don't think any of these big corporate, tech companies can ever match compared to what a wireless or a carrier in general can achieve.
Okay, so earlier there was a comment made on co-optation between the mobile networks and the solution providers, where the innovation is taking place. Do you then see from an innovation perspective, where then, like you just said, had a track record of let's say the incumbent networks is not that good from the innovation perspective, but do you see then let's say a co-creation, a new innovation emerging in that sense, or is it innovation is on the one side and network investments is on the other side?
I'm seeing more and more over the last few years that co-creation,
okay,
right? The carriers are willing to step up, put their money where their mouth is, not just, I don't want to pay anything and you figure it out.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing a lot more of that, but it's our responsibility, to provide them with those solutions, the vision, right?
Yeah.
So this is what I want you to do, or this is where you want to go. They agree, and we work together to get there.
Okay.
So a lot more of that you're seeing.
Yeah, Rijk, I think this is your...
Well, Eddie just mentioned trust, right? And trust is an important key, and we do not want to lose that trust. Mm-hmm. And that is what is withholding us from actually making moves. Because what we think is if we make a step, for example, with an open API, we do not dare to. Easy one. SD1, right? We have an API lying there. Mm-hmm. We can put it into our API store. We have the API store. Everything could be fixed. We have 1,200 different variances of VPNs. We all know you need the SD1 to create a VPN. We do not dare to bring one single API into the market we will still hold on to 1,200 variants of VPNs with all the costs that come along with it, because we do not know what the earning model is going to be. And we do not know that what the impact on trust will be, because the thing is that other companies will actually use our API and build VPNs on top of it. What's going to happen? We do not dare to touch that one. So that's a very easy example for everyone to actually see what's happening in our minds, because that's what's happening. That's a very clear example on how we cannot weigh the options at this point in time. Yeah. We do not dare to.
There's a fear of cannibalization going forward.
Exactly. But beyond cannibalization, that's one. That's the first threshold, and the second threshold is trust.
So it's a fear of making mistakes.
We have something in Holland that's called Internet plus Bellen. And that was a product that was finished for around 99%.
Yeah.
We just underestimated that 1% of the Netherlands actually using that solution. It's a hell of a lot of people giving a call. Well, it's like we were overflown basically by people that came back to us. It's like the system is not working. What have you done? Trust was going down.
Yeah.
And that's what we learned from that one. We don't want to lose that one.
Right.
We want to keep it high.
Yeah. But now, by not doing anything, by not innovating, you have a different problem.
That's the other point Eddie brought, right? And that's where you jumped on. It's the cooperation thing, right? I'm here showing a robot. It's like KPN a robot. What the heck? It's about finding the right people to work together with and create added value based on top of 5G. It's not about a robot. It's about the connectivity needed with the appliances and the applications running on top of that one. And that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
And that's why we have field labs.
Yeah.
And in those field labs, we experiment. And good things come out of it. Mm-hmm. Also some bad things, because those are what we call learnings. Because if you do not learn, you will not grow. And that's the key word we're currently using within KPN. We have a growth strategy.
Right.
Because we want to get out of the decline. If we keep on going towards the lower point, we have done a research within KPN. If we go to the dumb bit pipe strategy, we need 500 to 600 people.
Instead of?
Now, currently we have nearly 10,000.
Okay. But it sounds like a cost saving.
Yeah. Well, but that's the point, right? If you keep on maintaining to have the cost saving programs leading you, it ain't going to work. And what we have seen in the last results of KPN, so I'm not giving you a corporate secrets, the last 250 million we were going to cut down on costs, we were not able to maintain the level we should have gotten last year. We should have gotten around 80 million, but we didn't achieve that one. We are at the rock bottom of cutting down on costs right now.
Okay.
We should do the things differently.
Okay. So now it's about innovation and growth again?
Yeah, definitely.
And maintaining trust.
Maintaining trust is it's a hygiene factor.
Yeah.
A hygiene factor that's to be found within any telco. And being an incumbent, it's just a little bit higher than with the other ones.
Yeah, they expect reliability. I mean,
exactly,
and then as we know, we need reliability.
So you can also turn that one around. It's like an asset you need to deploy.
Yeah.
So do not throw away assets. You're stupid.
Yeah.
So I'm sure. So this is typical for carriers, right? For telco. So how do you at Mavenir work with these guys to do this co-creation? What does it typically look like, and what's needed to make those let's say co-creations successful?
So what's really exciting about Mavenir at the moment, besides all the network infrastructure services that we do, Open RAN, cloud, core, 5G, we have these amazing 5G solutions. We launched internally a SaaS offering. So I'm the Vice President of Global Business Development for the Enterprise Connect Group, which is our SaaS business. So we have taken some of our core network infrastructure solutions, such as MAP, messaging as a platform, the MAP layer for RCS, and we cloud enabled it and allowed it to move up that carriers can immediately connect to the cloud while Google is running the underlying P2P and monetize their A2P business on RCS. Also, adding in omni-channel that allows carriers to participate in markets and solutions that they were never initially involved in. Apple Business Chat, WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, etc. Along with our CPaaS offering with an acquisition that we did with a company called Telestacks that allows us to enable the carriers to be a true CPaaS provider. We're in a partnership with iBasis on a number of initiatives, UCaaS, CCaaS solutions. Again, moving the carrier from, and forgive me, being the dumb pipe, just dumping A2P traffic or whatever, to being the center of the universe. Now the carriers can monetize their RCS A2P traffic, their Apple Business traffic, etc. They can offer a broader range of solutions for their small, medium, and larger enterprise businesses, moving more and more into the customer engagement, customer conversational commerce, conversational engagement, conversational reach and discussions, because that's the value proposition. That's moving up the value.
And that's what it's all about these days.
That's what it's all about.
Customer journey, user driven. So you make it sound so simple.
It's very complex. Simplicity, the definition of simplicity is complex. And it's my job at Mavenir, or Mavenir's job, to take that complexity and make it very simple for him. Make it very simple for the carriers. We take on the complexity. That is our job. So as complex as we can make it, it's as simple as providing a business a website to go to. Here's a website, and now you're in the conversational commerce space, utilizing KPN's network with APIs and plugging in to Apple Business Chat and RCS rich business messaging and conversational commerce. That's our job. We'll do the complex stuff to make it easy for the carrier.
Okay. So Jan Rijk, now it's the technology is here. Now it's very simple, so what's stopping carriers?
The main thing I just learned is that we either adopt simple technology or we remain to be with a dumb bit pipe. I like to be stupid, so I love being in that area because now the point is here that basically you're telling me that you're going in to bring everything as a service, right? That's what we need to do as well.
That's right.
For us, it's a different game. The game is like software-defined network.
Yep.
So first turn it into software, and then you actually make it virtualized, network functionality virtualization. Yep. Then you can actually bring it into the cloud.
Yep.
We've got a long way to go.
I'm sorry?
We've got a long way to go.
Yeah.
Seriously, because the thing is that we have built up a legacy that's huge.
That's right.
Over the last we've been in existence around like 150 years, for 40 years. We have managed to build up like a ton of legacy. We need to get out of the situation in order to actually overcome a situation where you actually want to bring in something and we cannot adapt to it.
Yep.
Because that's the situation we're currently in. We would love to do things simple, but due to the fact that the environment is that complex, we need to first find our own simplicity.
Okay.
And that's where the challenge is. And that's bringing us back to the initial sentence I gave. We are our own enemy.
That's right. You are your own worst enemy.
And we are trying to overcome that one, but it's a challenge. And that's what we're working on.
What was in the old days? The old days, what was it saying? No one gets fired. No one gets fired picking IBM. It didn't matter if it worked or not. You didn't get fired, right? And there is a level of being scared to take that leap to a virtualized 5G core. There's this MEC, rolling out MEC type networks. Moving from basic two-factor authentication to conversational commerce. There is fear there. There is fear with the carrier. I get it. I understand. But all of a sudden, never in my life, ever would I ever thought AT&T is turning off their 3G network last week. Verizon's turning off their 3G network to free up spectrum for their 5G rollouts, right? So I would never assume that. And these networks are going from TDM that we knew worked. You picked up the phone, everything worked, to full IP cores. You asked me this in the 90s, I would say you're crazy. Internet people are nuts. They make these things up. Nothing works. SS7 just works, right? T1 just works. Now it's like T1. I got a 2 gigabytes coming into my house. So the world is changing. We have to embrace that change. The carriers need to be the cowboys of the old. You know, they need to step up and say, let's take this risk. We're big enough, we could afford to take that risk and roll out these new and incredible features. And you know, I know they want to show the dog and they want to show remote operations and stuff, but there are so many things that 5G is going to bring. There's so many things that conversational commerce is going to bring to consumers and to businesses. We have seen it due to COVID. Yeah, there'll always be two-factor and there will always be dumping A to P messages, but these networks are going to go IP. And what IP brings along that true rich experience that these consumers and businesses, enterprises are looking for.
Yeah, but you just indicated with your metaphor the situation we're at. You want us to be cowboys, right? You want us to run the Wild West. At the same time, we thrive on trust.
I think you could do both. The sheriff with the big badge, he did both. He was the wild.
The sheriff really had trust.
You know, at least in the Western movies I watch.
I'm not American, but I know my movies as if he was to be trusted. You know.
But sometimes.
But what's interesting is it does appear that from a consumer and enterprise perspective, there's a lot of trust in the incumbent networks.
Yes.
But they don't trust themselves well enough to move more into these new innovations and to present new solutions to the market, because what is the fear there?
I think it's not like believing it's not believing in ourselves. Yeah. It's indeed a fear.
Risk averse.
Exactly. It's the risk averse element.
Isn't it a leadership thing then? These times call for different leadership.
I'm sorry?
Isn't it a leadership thing? We need new leadership in these times, and that's something that Dick pointed out earlier today, or asked a question about. Is that the thing that's going to make this change?
If I may, I think the leadership in a lot of these carriers, you had guys like John Legere, who was unbelievable, out of his mind, did whatever he wanted.
He was a cowboy.
But hold on, I remember
T-Mobile.
T-Mobile. I remember when John was at XO and he wore suits. Then he wore T-shirts and sneakers, right? So you have some leaders like that. Here's something I said one day that didn't go over well, and I still believe it. These innovating tech companies, the Googles of the world, maybe Apple, you can Facebook, WhatsApp, and all that. They're willing to take risks. And if they continue to be willing to take risks, some are going to hit and some are going to not, right?
Right.
But they're going to take risks and they become just bigger than they normally are. I mean, just gigantic companies, and they'll crush the carrier. WhatsApp, why does the US have a WhatsApp problem? Because the carriers got smart, and it wasn't the big carriers, it was Metro PCS who launched unlimited messaging. And then everybody followed. And then we had a messaging problem that people, when they text, they just text. They don't go to WhatsApp. But in Europe, it was $1.50 to send an MMS. Here's a free service. So these guys were innovators, and they crushed the carriers' messaging business. The carriers have the carriers right now have a chance to take that leadership role away, like the earlier question, from these big tech companies, because of all the infrastructure they have, all the consumers and customers that are on their network, and everybody needs to become John Legere, right? That's how I feel. I think they're unique. They're so unique in a space, and that. Sometimes I don't think they realize the amount of influence and what they could truly become and do some great things, And it's not just being a quad play, have cable service, or it's really, you can get really, really, truly innovative from a carrier level than any one of these tech companies. And that's how I feel. I'm a carrier guy. I love them. I live for them.
Now, what are the solutions that you brought forward for, let's say, the carriers, and where Mavenir goes in big is RCS or RBM, the business messaging?
RBM, yeah.
It's already there for more than 10 years, but it's...
We go back to we're our own worst enemy. So previous to Mavenir, I was with a company called LivePerson, and I ran their RCS business. And it was a pleasure, and I kept saying for 3 years, if the carriers don't move, or the OEMs, the manufacturers, do not figure out a business model that will work for the carriers, so the carriers will move, Google will go right over the top. And I was told I was being dramatic. So when Google announced that they were going to go over the top on everybody, I said, am I being dramatic? So that's what happens by not taking that leadership position.
So how do you think, or I'm not sure the microphone works, how do you think the future will look like for RCS with Google in this space?
Sound's gone.
Yeah.
My sound is gone. Perhaps somebody can repeat the question.
I think you said, could repeat it one more time? What do I think RCS is going to look like with Google?
And Google is going in on it, and how will that impact this market?
So I think, there's been some actual movement in the space, which is exciting right now. While Google is going to really truly focus on Jibe, which is the P2P business, they're allowing the carriers to take ownership of and monetization of their A2P, which is why Mavenir has taken the step of moving our RBM and our map solution from a installed carrier network infrastructure piece to a AWS cloud offering. So what happens is now the carriers can launch, and I'm going to use my sales hat, the carriers can launch like that for A2P RCS, where they wouldn't have to install equipment anymore. It's open APIs. It's going to be a full omni-channel solution, but they're going to have the map services that is a true carrier service. And then the P2P, utilizing the Roma API that Google has come out with, will be delivered through the Google Jibe network. Now, there's some different type of changes, depending on the market, like the United States, which is all Mavenir core on at least the P2P side. And then in Japan, you have the WIT core and stuff. So there'll be some interfaces and working together between what's installed in the carrier's network and what is going to be in the cloud or with Google or others.
Okay. Good.
Yeah, in terms of time, guys, because I think we can use your mic for a second. I think we can talk about this for many more hours. Yeah. Let's try and wrap it up. I want to give Jan Rijk the mic for the last time, and to sort of try to make a conclusion here. How are we going to get this innovation going in telcos?
Quick one on RCS. RCS is not innovation, as we just learned. It's already been here for 10 years. We're already down on our third implementation, and it's still not running. Back to innovation. Innovation in itself, I think, is a way to grow for like a telco. And we should be more open towards new players in the market. And that is something we need to learn. And we should be trusting others like we trust ourselves. And that is what we need to work on. So for me, that's like the key for the coming periods. Make that one come true.
Couldn't said it better. Very nice.
Thank you very much, guys. It was a pleasure talking to you, and I look forward to what's happening in the next year. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to try and get some of these mics working again, and then we move to the final session. Dick, do you have a question?
Oh, here's a mic.
Well, that was very inspirational.
Thank you.
However, Eddie, Mavenir, I thought you gave a great sales pitch, but let's get real. What about China? What about Tencent? What about Alibaba? You talk about innovation like it's a US animal or European, and I believe we're here at the Mobile World Congress. What about China? How are you dealing with the conversational, commercial propositions and innovations from the East?
All right, I'm going to say something that many people, the only reason WeChat exists is because China Mobile and China Unicom and China Telecom have not complained. Because the minute they start complaining, they will. Now China has over 1 billion RCS users because they launched RCS. China forced the GSMA to make RCS the official 5G messaging standard. So China has a lot of power, and the only reason WeChat is still in existence is because China Mobile hasn't complained. You work with them. You have to work with them, right? You cooperate. I have worked with China Mobile. I have worked with all these guys. You have to cooperate with them.
You are one of the few.
Because I believe in the market.
Me too. But what about the United States as a whole?
I'll leave the politics out of it.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Okay, I think, we're moving to the next session. Exactly. Well Sure. This is off now, or
this is like motivational.
Test.
Yeah.
Test,
now
test.
I'm back.
You're back?
I'm back.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. So we take the China discussion offline. You guys have 2 more days to talk about that here. While we're sitting up here for the new guests. Hello, everybody. Hi. If we're all ready.
We haven't used them so far.
This is a right angle.
The camera's there, and there's another camera. The camera's on me, so yeah.
The camera is always on Gilbert, yeah.
I'll move a bit to this side. Yeah, all fine. It's quite good for you around for this session.
Okay, and we're back live from Barcelona. Very live. Mobile World Congress 2022. And we had a couple of sessions now that all sort of resonated around innovation, co-creation, user experience, and change and the way to create change in ecosystems and, let's say, large corporates that we're dealing with here in the space of telco. So with me now, I'd like to welcome Raluca, Olaf and Tina, because we're going to talk the next 20 minutes about customer focus, change, creating change in organizations, and we're going to go to SDGs, and Olaf is going to explain what those are and how they work. And we're going to see if we can make in the next 20 minutes, we can somehow come to some conclusion about the steps forward and how change can actually be created in this space. But I'd like to first give the mic to you for a short introduction and an explanation of, well, what you think of the role of the users in all this technology here.
Well, thank you for including me in such a very, thank you for including me in this panel. I'm Raluca Berchiu. I'm a customer experience strategist. I help companies differentiate themselves in a very digital-oriented world where the power has shifted from the business to the end consumer. Companies need to come up with something out of the box. And that card, I would call it, is customer experience. And it's not just differentiating to providing a satisfactory experience to the customer, but providing a remarkable experience to the customer. So I'm Raluca Berchiu and really pleased to be here today with you.
Olaf, very quickly.
Okay, I would pass it already to but I will do so. Yeah, my name is Olaf Muller. In the past, very active, been in the past for contact centers, And these days I'm working for the ITU, the International Telecommunication Union, which is now also involved in the United Nations program. So I'm involved in onboarding of cities and companies to use the UN program. So.
We have another one. Hopefully it's working.
Yes. Thank you very much for the invite here in the panel. I'm Tine van Herikhuizen. And owner of the company Blink to be Linked. It's an innovation agency, and I'm an advisor for companies, startups, scale-ups, and corporate on create, innovate, and grow. So how to profile and get them more aware about their connection to the social development goals.
So that's a good. My mic is not working. I'll take over this one again. Earlier on in the previous sessions, we had some questions on leadership and sustainability. So I think with the panel that we have right now, we can find the answers to that. So perhaps who can I give the microphone first for some comments on that?
Shall I take?
Yep.
I think what we have to do. We're talking about sustainable development goals all the time. Yeah. But for many people and governments and for cities, you will see it in the annual reports, because it's important. We're talking about energy, we're talking about climate control, sustainability is a part of it. And looking at the telecom, for example, they are using SDG 9. SDG 9 is infrastructure, SDG 11 is smart and sustainable cities. I cannot say it without sustainable, but because they have committed to me, I have to say sustainable. And looking at the going back to the SDG, there has been almost 200 leaders, world leaders, who committed in 2015 to make a better world. And this is a national or international commitment. And till 2015, till now, we only talked. So we only have 8 years left to do some. So about leadership, the business, but also the local governments has to take their role to implement the SDGs. So the SDGs has to be involved in everything we're doing. So looking at contact centers, I'm doing also contact centers in banks and local governments. They have to take the SDGs with them. And one of the things what we can do, for example, if you do a local tender or an international tender, a European tender, for example, we can put in an SDG return investment. So we claim we will use 5% of the whole amount of money, which we can put back in the SDGs. So this is something what we have to take, and this is a leadership thing.
Yeah, because now sometimes it's working, sometimes it's not. Apologies for that. So only 8 years left. Is it then a leadership issue, or is the incentive not good enough for them? Is that not enough, perhaps financial savings, or is it just overall the sense of importance of urgency on this one, on this topic?
I think they are waiting too long. You know, the government has written down they have to do it. But if I'm a local government, for example, nobody knows about how to do actually acting. What can we do? How can we reduce the climate? Of course, that's a difficult thing. But if you do an investment, for example, for a data center or make an IoT, then we have to give real examples. So we have to help them. So everybody's waiting too long. And now we see the cybersecurity issues. We can see the climate things. We can see all the dangers around. And now we see, yeah, we have to act. So it's still, we waited too long. So it's not a financial thing.
Yeah, it's so funny. Can I say something? Yeah. Because I agree partly, but some people and some companies do know. And for example, I'm an advisor for a Dutch pension fund, one of the biggest 5 in the Netherlands. They decided a couple of years ago to go back to their participants. There are 1.3 million Dutch people, and go back to them and said, okay, if you can choose between the sustainability goals, which goals are you choosing? They choose 4 goals and went to the London Stock Exchange together with BlackRock. Everyone knows BlackRock. And said, okay, have a look at our asset management and see if we can align them with the sustainability goals. They did. So almost 15 million euros has been benchmarked, aligned with the 4 SDGs. And we are doing the calculations right now, but one of the examples is that the carbon neutral has been reduced with 50%, so half. And I think that's a B2B thing, and I'm very curious to your story because you have a B2C thing.
That's very, very nicely. You jump from one to another one because at the end of the day, we are serving the end users. So the differentiation between the B2B and B2C, it's very small these days. At the end of the day, we are serving people. So people sell to people. People buy from people, and it matters who is the end user. So if you look at me, for example, I can be your direct customer, I can be your indirect customer, I can be your end user, and you as a company or as a person, you need to know exactly what I need, when I need, why I need it, and how I'm going to utilize that product, that service, in order to elevate my experience to the remarkable level.
I like that because, I mean, coming back to what we discussed earlier, with, for example, the case of Mavenir, where they focus on customer-friendly solutions, right? And in co-creation with large companies, try to make that possible. It's all user-driven. More and more than before, it's not technology-focused, it's not maybe even money-focused. The focus is on users, customers, citizens, because the SDGs didn't come out of nowhere. They are sort of driven by let's say, us collectively. So it's kind of interesting that the power is back to the people. And we keep talking about how companies and organizations and institutions need to change to adopt to that. So where do we start? You work with large companies on these subjects, right? And you come in and you tell them that things need to change. So how does that work in practice? Where do you start?
Well, the approach is different because I don't try to, it's from the inside out. So you educate, you create the awareness, and companies, people are going to start asking questions. And then you come and pick up the pain points of that company. And you start to create a strategy and implement it according to the pain points that the company has. Sometimes they might be thinking that they have a problem, but might not be the real problem. So you need to start asking questions. So like I said, just more and more curiosity, more and more understanding about internally who is the employee, what he wants, and then going outside and understanding the customer, because everything starts from the inside out. If the employees are not aware, if they are not educated, if they don't know exactly what customer experience can bring on the table, they will not be able to go out there and sell and present and be the ambassador of the company anyway.
Yeah, and in one way, I think we have the same mission, because at the end, everyone wants to be attractive as a person, as a company. So it's about value creation. And I think these days, you're more valuable if you are aware of the impact, and if you have a policy to go from A to B, and if you can explain to your customers or to your participants or to yourself that you are creating value for next generations.
I really believe that. If you look at the value, I totally believe in that, because you're showing that your mindset is right. You're showing that you have the SDGs in place, and that will show the customers and your customers that you're really thinking what you're doing. I think there's a parallel with telecoms. In the telecoms, if we looked at the past, we didn't believe that someone at home does have more technology that we offer at the office. The mobiles, the smartphone. I have changes with PBXs now, and we're going to unified communications. But everybody's got a mobile phone. So sometimes they are further ahead than we do as offering the facilities to our customers. So I think we have to see that the consumerization they are in power. So if you do it right, as you say, show it, give examples, then you make the change.
And perhaps, Raluca, you mentioned that sometimes they ask themselves the wrong questions, or they think there's a problem, but it's the wrong one. Do you have any samples, any use cases of how they were thinking in the wrong direction? And perhaps that fits a little bit Oliver's story on everybody has these handsets, and we haven't been using that enough, or we didn't see that because of that they had more power than they figured they have. Do you have any samples of that?
Well, I might have one from the airline industry. For example, an airline might believe that the general problem is that the trust of the customer is decreased just because of the COVID situation. But if they ask the right questions, they will dig a little bit deeper. They will understand that they might not choose their airline and they might choose another one for another reason. So I think this is a little bit out of the telecommunications industry, but I just wanted to emphasize the fact that customer experience applies to everything, not only to the tech. It's everywhere and all over around us.
Yeah, and it comes back to what we discussed earlier with Jan Rijk also. I mean, the issue, I mean, telcos are trusted, so they can play a big role in the innovation, but they're afraid to innovate because they're afraid to break stuff, right? So there's a strange paradox there, and I was thinking also, you made a comment a couple minutes ago. Related to finding the real problems, because I think there's a change, and you mentioned the next generations. I'm curious if part of this change that we're in is, I think the media, social media, has really created a different way for people to communicate and to develop these values, right? Because we're talking about values and shared purposes, not just for something on the board, on the wall, in a company, but something that's actually lived by people. And customers vote with their wallets. People vote online every day, right, on social media, for good or for bad. But there's this totally, in that sense, a new generation. And I'm also thinking, I have kids in their teens and 20s. They're different. When they look at places to work, they don't start with the money they're going to make. They start with the company and the values of the company. So I think it's a generational issue as well. And I'm curious about your thoughts on that. Who wants to start?
Can I have a short? Yes? I really believe that the power is with the people these days. So it starts with the people, also the youngsters. And then if I make a bridge to the leadership thing, that there is a new challenge for leaders. They really have to know what's going on. With the clients, with the whole stakeholder environment, and they have to facilitate. Because I had a really interesting conversation yesterday outside with an Italian guy, and he told me he's working for an US company, Irish-based, Italian background, was living here in Barcelona. So really funny. And he said, yeah, I'm free to choose, thanks to technology and the possibilities these days, to live here in Barcelona. I like it here. The climate, people, international environment. And a small example for him, it was more expensive to fly from Milan to Sicily, where his family was living, than from Barcelona to Sicily. And it was really a shout out to public organizations, because they really have a challenge also, because I believe the power is from the people, private is following, and public, they really have to follow and to facilitate.
Well, and this is the link back to this industry, of course, because it's made possible to a large extent by telecommunications companies and solutions. We can work now wherever we want. People choose that way. And I have the feeling it's like a perfect storm. Everything's changing, everything's flipping upside down, and we need to really build a new, or find a new way to get things organized.
Yeah, yesterday we had a nice example. We had Lightyear, there's a new car, which is totally a solar car. And it was interesting because yesterday we had two youngsters. They showed the car with such much enthusiastic way. And if you look back, we have won 4 times on a row the solar race. And from that, we showed at a technical university in Eindhoven, they could do such a thing. And now they developed the car, and the car has to be launched now this summer. I think it will cost under 100,000 or 150,000 euro, but it doesn't matter. But this has to be, for example, the technology is so different as we were used for, because it can drive for a month without power, and just picked up with the energy what they do. So why are we not investing in those things? So this is an example which has been done by youngsters, and there we, as older people or current organization, they have to invest in and to enthusiast in these things. So I think it's a good parallel what we showed on the Mobile World Congress as an example what we can do in the telecoms in the same way.
So this is a very positive example of youngsters with an innovation. Are we perhaps a little bit reluctant for change, and do we need events like COVID and in the past 2 weeks with Ukraine to speed things up and to create a wake-up call? Is that what we need?
Definitely. Every challenge has a positive side. So I think when you look to the positive side, that's really one global challenges are speeding up the impact thing and making us looking ahead and combining forces also, because what you see, which happened last week about the Ukraine thing, immediately a lot of people, countries combining forces and stand out. So
But also technology.
yes, thanks to technology. And the COVID thing is a couple of, we didn't expect that we are able to speed up as a whole globally, and there is a lot to do because 40% of the world isn't inclusive in the connected world, so there is still a lot to do. But I think we are speeding up, and we have to keep speeding up.
Yeah, another thing, for example, if you look a couple of years ago, before COVID, I was doing a tender, and we had to replace the telephony platform for a university. And then I asked them, we have to go to collaboration, unified collaboration, we have to do it. And they said, no, we cannot do it. The change will be too much. We're a university, it's not going too fast. It's not possible. COVID came, and within a couple of months, we deployed the whole UC environment, and then it's possible. But the background is, nobody from originally want to change. If something is happening or threatening, you're going back in the old habits. And I think COVID made a change. That's why the UC, if you look around, it went very well last couple of years. So it's not a good thing, but the good thing is, it's speed up.
You mentioned also, in the way you work, you go and find the real pain, right? The real problems, searching the real problems. I think change is always driven by pain, much easier than by benefits, right? It's biologically programmed in us. So maybe there's something good coming out of this whole COVID situation. So I'd like to give each of you the chance to say a prediction for the next year. What will be completely different 12 months from now, or what do you hope will be achieved 12 months from now, when we're back here on the same when we're back here next year?
I have one. I'm glad, for example, the city of Amsterdam, they joined the UN program, so they picked it up. And what we're going to do now is we're going to look at how is Amsterdam doing on all the 17 SDGs. So it's a thermometer. So they are, sometimes maybe there can be something bad coming out, that they're not doing well. But they pick up the glove and they do so. So I think for me, for this coming year, is that we take the responsibility in the local governments. Say they have to be the leading one, and they have to support the business. So the triple P, the business and the partnerships and the private companies, has to be led by the government, but not led by the government. Government has to give an initiative, and then we have to do it together. So I think this now is coming, because of the COVID, is going very fast.
Go ahead, please. Okay. One last thing. I've been seeing a lot of innovations here on Mobile World Congress. And as the Dutch delegation, we brought a couple of marvelous partners with us. A lot of innovative companies. And we saw a lot of joint forces and collabs. So what I hope and what I expect next year, that there are some co-creations and they speed up the innovation in telecoms, because there is a lot to do and there are a lot of positive challenges and changes. So I'm looking forward.
I would be very short, and I would just encourage any company, any business, no matter the size, the vertical, the sector they are working in, just see new opportunities behind any challenge. Be inclusive, be open-minded. I know change is scary, but let's just do it.
Good. And you, Gilbert, what do you think 12 months from now? Except for maybe working microphones by then?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Technology pushed us a little bit back here, but might be good because there was a better chance for comments here. In the final comments, the co-creation, the cooperation was mentioned, and in our previous discussions that we had today, that was also mentioned, whether it was from mobile operators with service providers, or whether it's the verticals, or it doesn't matter. The co-creation is a key thing, and perhaps you're right. No matter how big the challenge is, because that's what we see with COVID, that's what we see now with Ukraine, and how tech companies actually, on top of what governments are already doing, how tech companies are also interfering there and able to make a difference. How that joint responsibility might help us going forward. That is not just a financial drive, saving energy, but that it's also to save planet, to make life easier, to create value for the people in that sense. So that's my conclusion. Whether that's the big thing for next year, I'm not sure. I think it'll still be cloud, openness,
6G.
Metaverse.
6G, maybe. Yeah, I think that sums it up nicely. The co-creation and let's say purpose-driven leadership as the way forward, and the let's say the customer empower. Right. That's really the big thing, I think, the big takeaway. It's not technology driven, it's people and customer driven, and that's going for the next generations. There's a real tipping point here going on, and I look forward to this next year as well. I'm sure we will be looking at totally different things 12 months from now, because that's the way it happens. We know the direction, we don't know the results. Thank you all for being here, and I look forward to having this same discussion maybe a year from now. Thanks all.
Thank you.
So that's a wrap, guys. We're going to go into the drinks now with sponsor KPN, I think, today at the booth. I'm not sure. I'm looking at Peter. He doesn't know either. Anyway, thanks for watching, and see you later.
Thank you. It was a bit with the mics. Was a bit of a mess.